Anton, I'm going to circle back to you. And obviously they've destroyed or damaged Diddy's reputation, but he may come out on the other side of this even more popular and wrapped in that victim flag. And part of me yesterday was thinking like, hey, this is going to be a blow to hip hop and the whole culture and brand of hip hop. And now I'm sitting here in real time going like, well, maybe this will be good for hip hop and empower hip hop. And you can see a bunch of songs about how we're targeted and we're victims. Anyway, how does this trial and what happened to Diddy affect the rest of hip hop, Jay-Z, anybody, the brand of hip hop? This whole thing may be a win for Diddy and hip hop.
I believe that he's the victim. As crazy as that sounds, I believe that Diddy is the victim, and this trial has basically proven that he is. Anybody that followed it from the time that they first announced the charges all the way up until, they read the verdict, you can tell that this was basically an opportunity for the federal government to try to get a win. And not only did they try to get a win, they got a win on top of the fact that he had to pay Cassie, on top of the fact that she was also the Bonnie to his Clyde, and on top of the fact that, if you remember, they also tried to sue Jay-Z and set him up with a person that had never been in his purview in the first place. And people automatically jumped on it, and they automatically tried to convict him also in the court of public opinion. I'm not even sure that you can say that this was a fair trial when all of the jurors had already been familiar with every piece of evidence that they were trying to present against him, that they was already painting him as a negative person before he ever even stepped foot inside of the court. They didn't give him bail. They let him sit in jail. And then they also tried to leverage Cassie in order to get a bunch of other people to file lawsuits. If you look at Dawn Richards' testimony, she benefited from it. She also was just on his Love album that he dropped right before they arrested him, and they tried to convict him. So the very people that were testifying against him, which obviously we know that the federal government offered them immunity, were the very ones that were benefiting from him. Cassie, she enjoyed a phenomenal lifestyle. Now she gets to go off and ride in the sunset with her boyfriend, her trainer boyfriend. For me, it looked like a money grab. And so it looks like he was getting shaken down and finessed. And so I do think that they made him the hero, and he is the victim of this whole situation. He may not be the victim as far as his lifestyle and what we agree with as far as how people are supposed to conduct themselves. But last I checked, being extra freaky wasn't a crime. At worst, this was a domestic violence situation. It was jealousy. It was a person that got too much money and all of the power went to his head. But they didn't prove anything except for this was a trope. This was an opportunity for them to try to get a win, and they failed spectacularly. And I don't think that he should have got convicted on any of the charges.
Delano, is the word victim and Diddy, is that too strong of a word?
I'm not gonna use it just because his behavior is part of the reason he ended up in this particular situation. One thing that I think is important to point out, again, just from my limited knowledge of the case, is that, and this goes to your point about hip hop, Jason, is that the prostitutes we're talking about, many of them are men, right? He was hiring men to sleep with women that he was involved in, right? So involved with. So I get Anton's point in terms of him being overcharged and the perception that he was railroaded. But Diddy's behavior is what put him in this particular situation.
I hate this, Jason. I can't, man. I can't, bro. Because it's like, what are you talking about? Nobody deserves to, bro. Killers get more time than what they tried to charge. They tried to get this man life. They tried to get him the rest of his natural life in prison.
I spoke to the overcharge, and obviously the jury heard the evidence. They deliberated on it. I always tend to give the jury the benefit of the doubt because they're the people who spend the most time with the evidence, and they found him not guilty on 3 charges. But what I'm saying is, if you're hiring men to sleep with your girlfriend, right?
That's tricking. It's called tricking.
However you want to phrase it. But if this is a lifestyle that you're living, and you're a public figure, and you're the type of person who can and does have political enemies, you should know that there's a possibility somebody's gonna come after you. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just living in the real world. So if you're the type of person who brands yourself as Mr. Love, and I'm caring, and I'm compassionate, and I care about the community and all this other stuff, you better have a clean closet, because this happens regardless of who you are, white, black, Chinese, or candy stripe. If you're the type of person, you're a public figure, and you have skeletons in your closet, you leave yourself vulnerable to being prosecuted. And I'm not saying that's right. I actually think that's
You
wrong.
leave yourself vulnerable to be prosecuted.
The criminal justice system should not be used for political payback. I'm saying it should not be. What I'm saying is that it often is. And obviously, I mean, I think arguments can be made that this is what happened in Diddy's case. What I'm saying is I'm not going to call him a victim, because much of this, I guess if you want to be technical in terms of the prosecution side, sure, you can say that he was overcharged, right? And this should never.
A victim. If somebody is being overcharged for something, and we know that the consequences that come behind it, because let's be clear, this is not just about Diddy. This is a reflection of our justice system at large. What they do inside of our justice system, and thank God Diddy was one of the few people that had the resources to be able to effectively defend himself, because I don't worship celebrities. So I'm not using him as the litmus for whether or not I should do or not do, or have freak offs, or whether or not I got too much money, or I let the ego go to my head, or whether or not I'm paying dues to go and bust down my chick because I'm a cuckold. That's not the kind of conversation that we should be having. The conversation that we should be having is, how many men are in prison that didn't have the resources that Diddy have? Thank God he did, but they are being convicted. And what the federal government and what these states often do is they overcharge, the word that you're using, they overcharge men on a regular basis. Most of those guys in prison, to be honest with you, and that's why we got the Innocence Project, were overcharged. And what happens is they're not really guilty of what they're being convicted of, but the federal government will trump up all of these charges, and they will throw this on there and this on there and this on there. And then they will scare these guys who got to get this public defender. And then they'll say, you know what? If you don't plead guilty to these charges, you're going to spend the rest of your life in jail, because nobody is going to believe you, and you're going to get this lawyer over here that got these slip-ons that's not even qualified to defend you against these charges that the federal government is going to throw at you. So I don't think that this is just about Diddy. I think that this is a reflection of our justice system that often at times use men, black men in particular, as the people, and then they become the victims because they're not getting convicted of the crimes that they've actually committed. They're being overcharged.
Let me hop in here.
The things that they did not do.
Let me hop in here. Let me hop in here. I think power will abuse anyone. And we could go story after story of, look, Karen Reed. We just came out of the Karen Reed trial, and the police clearly killed another police officer, and they tried to put a little white woman in prison for life when they did the killing. That just got proven. So power will abuse, and it doesn't care what color you are. And to me, this Diddy situation, Diddy's not a victim. He's a co-conspirator that the power system and the elite wanted to use to make some sort of point, wanted to use as some sort of example so they could exert more power and control. I clearly, this is, to me, a miscarriage and an overcharge, but I don't think we can zero it down to, hey, this is what happens to black guys. Because again, when you put yourself I'll even say Karen Reed, she was a drunk. She got drunk that night. She's a victim of an overcharge, but she did put herself in harm's way. And that's why there are some behaviors people need to adopt to keep themselves out of harm's way. And when you have as much power as Diddy, and you're conspiring, in my view, because if you look at Diddy's father, he was some sort of government plant and agent. There is a price. And when you make your money and gather your fame off of being basically a demon and promoting demonic culture, there is a price that you will have to pay at some point. Diddy just paid it. Now that he's about to get his rewards, he'll probably be more famous. He didn't snitch on anybody. He let them contain it the way they wanted to contain it. No different than Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeff Epstein and whatever happened to them. But I'm always hesitant on the victim narrative. I overcharge, miscarriage of justice, but there are very few victims. And I say that because I sit here and say, man, they just got this dude for flued out. And I sit there and, man, if flued out is a charge, oh boy, I better, I might be going down for that. And talking about my past, but if flued out is a charge, whew, I'm not going to sleep well tonight. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss a moment of Fearless.